Hello and welcome to another technical takedown the hard way. In today's video we're going to talk about the differences between overlanding in Australia, North America and Africa. I know some of you may think that these three overlanding locations, well, they're pretty much the same, aren't they? No, there are some big differences. And I'm struggling with it kind of because every time I look to YouTube to try and find some information out about any particular thing, say tires or modifications, I will look at the person who's modifying the car, and if they're from Australia, they'll be talking about what types of shock absorbers you're going to definitely need, and I'm like, are we going to need that? Oh, okay then, we're going to have to find a way to raise our suspension and all sorts of stuff which doesn't really apply to me. So this can lead us down a road where we're thinking that we're going to have to do certain modifications to our cars that we actually do not, because we're not in the place or not in the environment in which the person who's giving you the information about where they are located. So in today's video, that's what we're going to do. We're just going to check out a few differences, subtle differences, things that you may think you may need or things that we may think we may need on the African continent. They just don't. We're going to start with the front bumpers. Okay, I have seen new Australian cars and they have these huge bull bars, massive bull bars right at the front of their cars. And a lot of you might be thinking, well, why on earth do they have these big grills on the car in places where most places in the world they wouldn't even be street legal, certainly not in Europe? Well, there's a big reason for this, because in Australia you have a lot of kangaroos, and hitting a kangaroo will do a lot of damage to your car. So that is a fact. So in Australia you may need a big bull bar because the chances of you hitting a roo is actually quite substantial. Whereas in Africa, yes, we have big animals there too that run into the road that you can hit and you would get significant damage to your car. But what are the chances of that happening? The chances of that happening are actually very low. And I don't know why this is the case, but because we do have animals that are way larger than kangaroos, but that if you hit them, you're not going to just destroy your car. You could do yourself some serious damage. But people seldom put these huge bull bars on the front of their cars in Africa. And the reason why is because the chances of you hitting one of these animals is very low. Most people do not drive during the night in Africa. They are smart. Definitely the overlanders, they always try to stick to the roads during the day. They take their time, okay? And if you take your time, you're driving in the middle of the day, you're going to see an elephant, right? You're going to see a rhinoceros. You're going to see a hippopotamus. These things are massive and they are not as flighty as a quick jumping kangaroo that could jump in front of your car straight away. Plus the infrastructure in Africa, the roads, the quality of the roads are much lower, which means you're going to be doing much slower speeds. So the chances of you damaging your car in that way in Africa is much lower than what you would do if you was in Australia. Hence, you do not need one of these huge bull bars in Africa. They are unnecessary and they are extremely heavy. But in Australia, you definitely need one. Another modification that people talk about a lot are winches. Now, wait a minute. Now, winches can come in. Now, I've been thinking about whether or not I'm not going to talk about winches. No. Another thing people talk about a lot are the size of these wheels. Now, I see a lot of these overlanders and these, I don't know what it is with America, but they tend to talk a lot about wheel size. Yeah, size matters. Of course, this is the United States of America. And they will talk about tire sizes, and for them, the bigger, the better. However, when you're doing long-term overlanding, especially on the African continent, the chances of you being able to find a size 37-inch tire in the middle of the upper Volta Delta in Ghana. It's impossible. You're never going to find one, perhaps not even in the country. So these massive tires that you see them putting on their overlanders in the United States of America are just no good in Africa. In fact, if you are doing long-term overlanding, these massive tires are just no good for anywhere. International overlanding, you need tires which are going to be more ubiquitous, more internationally available. So you need to find tires which will best suit you and your car for that particular journey. In Africa, we're going to try and go with 16-inch tires because 16-inch tires are available on most Land Cruisers and on most Hiluxes that you see roaming around on the African continent, which means they have plenty of tires to fit that tire size. So of course, that is what we're going to be going for, to make sure that if the worst does happen, we can buy another tire right there on the continent. Power. Another thing that people like to upgrade. Power. People love to upgrade and stick turbochargers or superchargers onto their vehicles, which will give the car a lot more power. Unfortunately, this puts a lot more strain on the vehicle. Your car is engineered for a particular amount of energy to go through the drive line. And if you start thinking about sticking an extra 200, 300 horsepower through that same drive line, you are, of course, going to get problems. And those drive lines are not always going to be repairable in the places where you're going to be. If you were in the United States of America, you do the same thing. It's no problem. You can tow your car back home. But once again, if you're in the middle of the Sahara Desert, you're going to be stuck in the middle of the Sahara Desert. So what can we do as overlanders in Africa, international overlanders in Africa? The best thing we can do is to keep our car as stock as possible by buying a car which is as bone stock, which is as capable off-road from stock. This is the most important thing, because therefore we are going to have parts on our car that's going to be engineered for that particular car. We're not going to have parts which could start a cascading effect in inputting extra strain on other parts, other components of the car, which will of course make one link into many links much weaker. So that is one thing we're going to do. We're going to, of course, buy a decent car where we don't need to modify it in order to make it do the type of journey that we are planning to do. So guys, that is it from me for today. I'd like to thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.